Hi, and welcome again to the Oral Wealth Prosperity and Practice podcast. My name is Jackson Sadler. I'm an oral and maxillofacial surgeon practicing in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And once again, I'm joined by my co-host, Brian Swilling.
Hey, everyone.
He's a registered investment advisor and has a wealth of experience focusing on helping dental professionals with a lot of the financial related aspects that we just don't get a lot of education on. So today, Brian and I are going to be talking about building this financial team kind of around yourself, various aspects of that, and just kind of giving you guys general knowledge about what you should be looking for and some pitfalls to avoid when you are selecting these people. And, I think appropriately, we're going to start with here on the podcast, the first member of your team, the registered investment advisor, which Brian happens to be. So we're going to let him take over from here.
Yeah, and that's not biased at all. The first member of your team.
That's okay.
But what is a registered investment advisor? It is a certain subset of the financial advisor world that is mostly fee for service, or what they call fiduciary advisory. So that is my role. So what that means for most registered investment advisors is you're not selling product for commission. Which in the financial world, there's brokers which sell product for commission. There's insurance agents, which we talk about as an important member of your team, but they sell product, sell insurance and get commissions. And then there's registered investment advisor, which charges fees for their services, usually focused on comprehensive financial planning, like myself. So it's important to have that one person, and it's not always the first person you hire, but it is usually the first person you hire that gives you advice, that is literally paid to be your sounding board for all financial decisions. And unfortunately, it's the last professional that some people engage with.
Sure. I do want to ask you a question. I think this is an important point for listeners, because I know at some point I definitely didn't know the difference. Can you talk about the difference between fiduciary and non-fiduciary and kind of what the implications are?
That's a good point. So when I was talking about the three different types of people who call themselves financial advisors, the commission-based group have a standard of best interest. So they just have to claim that the product they're selling the client is in the client's best interest, which is really hard to do when you're selling a product that
may not be in their best interest.
That has, the higher commission products are sometimes the ones that are not in the best interest of the client.
Based on, and their take home salary is dependent on how many of those things they can sell. Sure.
So that's the first standard.
That's fiduciary or non-fiduciary?
That's non-fiduciary. That's best interest.
Okay.
Or non-fiduciary. Fiduciary is you have an obligation to do everything in the client's best interest. Like it's a standard above best interest. Like everything you do and the advice you provide is held to a higher standard. Okay. You can think of like a lawyer. So they're just higher, like they have like legal standard. You can lose your license for, providing bad advice or going outside the law. It's that's the fiduciary standard is the similar. So it is what you should look out for, and all registered investment advisors are held to that standard.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good.
You not to get overcomplicated, you can have registered investment advisors that also sell product, but because they're held to that higher standard, everything they do is held to that same fiduciary standard. Gotcha. So they're more likely not to sell the highest commission product.
So fiduciary and non-fiduciary, hypothetically, unless there's something specific to their company, they can offer the same products. It's just fiduciary is going to be held to the standard of making sure that their client's best interests are the things being addressed. And non-fiduciary could, in theory, sell things that are higher commission that happen to be in their best interest and not their clients.
Yeah, as long as that happens, because all they have to do is document that the client said this, and this was the product that the client accepted.
Gotcha.
So it's still they're still held to that best and client's best interest. Yeah, but it's a broader.
It's easier to
to
circumvent that.
Yeah,
or the water's a little bit muddier.
Yeah,
gotcha. Okay.
How do you choose? We talked about this, like what, and I guess the next thing is what do I offer or another registered investment advisor? Usually it's comprehensive planning, it's tax planning, it's estate planning, so wills, trusts, review. Usually it's also strategic guidance, like so stuff that's not necessarily directly related to, investments or financial planning. It's really, if you have anything that you need a second opinion on, usually that registered investment advisor is a good person to reach out to because they're held to that standard. Mm-hmm. Choosing the right, registered investment advisor, or RIA for short, is you should find somebody who kind of has a specialty in what you're looking for. Like specifically, I understand the world of dental medical professionals, specifically practice owners. So I have a unique insight. Growing up in a family of dentists, my dad, again, my dad's a dentist, my sister's a dentist. I understand the nuances of that. Any registered investment advisor could help and understand. It just it helps to have that specialty. And when you're looking for one, if you can find a good specialized RIA, I would choose them over the general one. But if you have if you can't find that right person, a general registered investment advisor can do the job as long as they are asking good questions and understanding.
Cool. All right. So, you got any more points about RIAs, or move to our second person?
Yeah. Okay. So the next person in the group is a tax and accounting professional.
Oh yeah.
And it's really, that's kind of right in my wheelhouse. When I started my career, I would outsource all that. I find a trusted, I would do the tax planning, come up with the ideas, and outsource that to a tax professional, and had good relationships there. But there's a bunch of mergers, things changed, and I was no longer getting that good service from my clients. So an opportunity fell into my lap where old friend of mine, he was a CFO of a large commercial company here, but then they restructured and got rid of him and his role and his team that he built. They hired him to build, and he called me. He's like, "Hey, I'm looking to do what I was doing on the nights and weekends, helping small business owners with, bookkeeping, accounting, and tax. And I know a lot of people in the industry. Can you help me out?" I'm like, "Actually, we were just looking for that good resource, right?" So we actually partnered with him to be able to combine, have that combined resource of RIA and bookkeeping, accounting,
so you can and tax. Sometimes you can find these things all under one roof.
Yes.
Okay.
But those two probably talk to each other
the
most. And mostly, and a lot of times the tax and accountant is not providing a lot of advice because there's a lot of liability there.
Sure. It's just a lot of analysis and
it's mostly transactional.
Sure.
Very important to have that person because the risks of not getting your taxes right, especially when you have 1099 income or you start a practice, there's a lot of liability there. And if those two professionals aren't talking to each other on the same page, it can be painful. We don't require all our clients to work with both groups because they're two different companies, but there is kind of a streamline. There's an ease to it when they're all in house.
So, Will, specifically with tax and accounting, I think I may be making some assumptions here, but I think most people from the I guess like from a starting point, most people understand taxes are confusing. It's deliberately a difficult thing to put together and to make sure that you've done accurately. So, I mean, from a asset protection standpoint, trying to make sure that you don't end up owing the government more money than you would owe them originally because you've miscalculated your taxes in some way, especially when it comes to your business. Um, you know, the amount of money that you could be liable for could end up impacting your practice adversely. So, I mean, I think at the very least, having somebody uh, to look over those things, even if you want to have a full understanding of it, it's again asset protection so that you don't. It's one of the things that I think about with this type of thing is I want to have this type of professional on my team so that if something goes wrong, I can say, what did you do wrong? And not say, what did I do wrong? And to your point earlier, we've got a lot of things that we got to focus on as healthcare professionals that have to do with the clinical part of our careers. And we may be well versed in these things, but even if we are, a certain amount of our time is being occupied by our clinical practice. And I don't think most of us have the time to devote to reviewing these things in detail. And beyond that, I don't think a lot of people in general have the desire to do it.
Yeah, I've only met one dentist that actually tried to do their taxes on their own. She did her personal taxes and then she bought a practice on her own. Like you can probably get, your personal taxes done without that much error. And then she tried to learn how to do her practice tax return, which is a whole nother beast.
Yeah.
And she wasted hours and hours and hours of her life trying to learn how to do it and ended up saying, well, I can do my personal, but I'm going to outsource the corporate. I'm like, why don't you just have both of them done? But anyway, that is like, to your point, that the first person everybody usually hires on your financial team, or one of the first, is the tax and accounting professional. Mm-hmm. But again, a lot of the tax and accounting professionals aren't providing that advice, but at least they should be providing, optimizing your tax mitigation.
Sure.
But they're not always. Sometimes you have to bring them ideas. So that's why I think teaming up with a registered investment advisor who can present you ideas or present the accountant, tax professional, the ideas and have them sign off on it is like a no-brainer.
Sure. That sounds like it does go hand in hand. And I think that kind of goes in nicely with the next person on the team, the legal counsel. At least again, from my perspective, there's just so much information that you have to stay abreast of, and there are changes in laws, and there are differences in local laws, state laws, or national laws. And recently, talking to a lawyer who specializes in dental contract law, just to go over some things for contract restructuring, potential contract restructuring. I generally have an idea of what the standards are for my profession and for the region. I generally understand kind of like, obviously like what my performance has been like during the time that I've been working with this group. But really having I guess like the perspective that comes with helping with several different people who are in similar situations, it's just invaluable. It's kind of like you can't put a price on experience. So I could be reading these things, I could be up to date on these things, I could feel really confident in the decision that I'm making, and I might not have the entire picture because I'm only looking at it from my perspective. So it has been nice having her just be able to comment on these things, give me some feedback about what she thinks is reasonable and what she thinks I need to push for a little bit more. Because one of the things I think we all fear is being undervalued. Doing a whole bunch of work that makes some money, and then that money goes to someone else when you could be investing your time and your energy in other places.
Yeah. And everybody, I think, has that at some point in their career. That's why a lot of people go, think, oh, it'll be better if I start my own practice, start my own thing. But that comes with a whole nother level of issues. Yeah.
And,
Yeah. And the legal, the legal professional can do a lot of things from contract negotiation to work at, helping you get set up with the boards, right? The North Carolina dental boards, right? There's some, or any
I didn't
board,
use it
right?
for that, but yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
but you can.
could be.
Well, especially when you start your own practice, right? You have to make sure the name is approved.
I see what you mean. Yeah, like the legal things that go along with setting up your practice and registering it with the dental board.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So there's a lot of nuances, and that's somebody who is more transactional in nature.
Sure.
But you need to have somebody to call and a trusted professional early in your career for the basic stuff, contract negotiation, protection. You can also, this can also loop in the estate planning too, right? So wills, trusts,
sure.
Or sometimes people push that off.
Yeah.
Till it becomes too late. Time, right? Yeah. But you should have that. You should have that done when you're young and you don't have a lot of responsibilities. It's really easy to do, but it's still important.
Just tweak it.
Yeah, just tweak it from there. Sure. So that can be something early on you get. And then we talked about practice ownership. Just that's a whole nother level that you need to get that relationship. But if you started early, through contract negotiation and then possibly practice ownership and then transition, they usually come back in. Or when you start hiring people, you need somebody to consult. So that's a good
stuff. Yeah, a lot of stuff you could be liable for.
Yes,
don't get those things outlined correctly, and you don't want to. Nobody wants to get sued, but you definitely don't want to end up paying out money for something that you didn't do or that you were in the right on, but it's just a technicality that it wasn't written down in the correct way or something.
Yeah, it's just better to, again, I think it's better to outsource. How many hours do you think you spent like making sure you understood different types of contracts? Did you do a lot of research, or was it mostly just?
But I'm a huge nerd. I made like an entire, honestly, I made what would essentially be like a module's worth of information about contracts, the different terms in contracts, different structures, what thing, pearls and pitfalls, things you should push for, national standards, all that stuff. So, I did.
And that's why we did a podcast on it.
Right. Yeah. I did deep dive into contracts. And still I do not feel like I feel confident that I can understand a contract. I could read through one. I could, I kind of notice some of the legal jargon that would be potentially problematic or that needs to be clarified, specified, things like that. Because again, if it's not in writing, then it doesn't exist. So being able to identify these things within your contract, and if you can't, or even if you can, still it's a good idea, again, from the standpoint of asset protection, to have somebody who's reviewing these things for you. Because of course nobody wants to shell out, $400 or $500, $1,000, whatever it is, for somebody to review something that they've already made, or to put together something like a document. But also it might end up saving you thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars on the back end because you had these things in place appropriately.
Yeah. Do you think there's a balance? Have you realized there's a balance between trying to do all the research? I mean, obviously you did research for yourself and for the podcast, but generally professionals, because they have limited resources, which the main resource is time. Do you think there's a balance between understanding enough so you can talk to that
Absolutely.
Professional,
but then also, you're hiring this person. You're hiring this person to help you with these things. It's reasonable for you to ask them to clarify or explain some of these terms, or some of like the clauses and things like that are in contracts. I don't know how many other people might feel like this, but I think in the past, sometimes you hire somebody to do a job, you ask them to review this thing, and then you just assume that they know what they're doing, which is fine, because most of the time people do. And most of the time I think people want to do a good job. They want to represent themselves well in their professions. But that's not always the case. and you don't want to find out years down the line that you chose the wrong person. If you are going to make that decision and end up, unfortunately, in a situation with somebody who may not have your best interest in mind, may not be doing the best quality work, that's something that you want to find out as soon as possible. And one of the best ways to do that is to be able to check that yourself. When I was in residency, they had a saying when it came to, things that had to do with patients, whether it's their labs, whether it's their clinical evaluation. That saying was trust but verify.
Yep.
So it's great to be able to trust people and to depend on the work that they do, but also at the end of the day, you are the person who's going to be affected by this person's work. And if their work is not of a high quality, or at least the standard that you require, then you're going to end up paying for it on the front end by getting them to do the work, and you're going to pay for it on the back end by correcting whatever mistakes they made or things that they missed.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point for all these professionals. Is if you're not a super nerd or you don't have a lot of time, well, it's super nerd. That's kind of insulting.
No, it's not.
If you're not, yeah,
nerds are great.
Yeah, nerd out.
I love learning stuff.
So if you don't want to do all that research or just do the basics, you need to have a professional that will educate you along the way. Mm-hmm. So you definitely don't need to, whether it comes, especially in the financial world where there's a lot of jargon, a lot of terms that people use. Don't be afraid to say, hey, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Explain that.
Yeah.
And that person should be willing to explain it. So you don't have to go out and do excessive amounts of research. You still need to trust, and verify. But if they do a proper education, the verification process is much quicker.
For sure.
And it kind of goes to the next professional. And we talked about it early on, maybe in a negative light, which I don't want to mean it that way, but it's very necessary. So that's the insurance.
Yeah, nobody likes
professional.
Insurance.
Yeah, nobody likes necessary. It. Nobody likes it. But we talked about you said asset protection.
Right.
Multiple times. Yeah, I mean what is insurance? It's protecting you, which is your biggest asset, and other assets, right, that you could have. So it's a necessary evil. But in this is definitely where you want to trust but verify, right? Make sure you get the protections you need, right? Whether it's protecting income, your practice, personal assets, different types.
Your body.
Yeah, your body, your health.
Yeah.
These are all, So, most of the typical ones like disability, malpractice, life, and business overhead, expense insurance are the main ones that you focus on. And what's like, a lot of people ask, what's enough? Enough is whatever works for your situation. Right.
But then that's going to require us to look into our situations individually. And
so when you're looking for a professional, that's it. Like they should be asking you enough questions to learn your situation before providing recommendations and give you options, right? You want to fully protect? This is the number. Or do you want to partially protect, whether it's income? This happens a lot in disability income, right? You can protect up to 80% of your income, and you're the biggest asset. I think that's a very important thing that dentists kind of understand early on, and that's one that is probably one of the first insurance policies that a lot of healthcare professionals, dental professionals get. But it's a necessary evil and not one you want to leave out. If you have that whole team, let's say you have a registered investment advisor, you have a tax and accounting professional, and then you're, starting to look into maybe more or getting insurance for the first time, you have those other people, who can help verify whether that's the right amount for you. So if a registered investment advisor does a comprehensive plan, that plan should tell insurance professional exactly what they need. So that makes the trust but verify a lot easier. Mm-hmm. And you have other professionals just be like, hey, is this the right thing? Right? This is what the guy presented. Is it, this is the right thing for me? Does it fit my plan? Mm-hmm. So that makes it way easier. So you just need to, one of the things to look for also is the best kind of insurance person is an independent broker, right? So you have some captive where they only sell one type of insurance.
You mean from like one specific company?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
The one that everybody knows. Yeah. That has all the commercials.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you.
Red shirt.
Yeah.
That whole jam.
And people, and if you are in or went through dental school, I'm sure sure they'll come find you. You don't have to go looking for them. They'll come find you.
Yeah. There's again they have to sell they're on commission. They have to sell the next product to make money. Doesn't mean everybody is, doing it the wrong way, but they have to. Even the best people still have to go out there and hunt. So again, trust but verify there for sure. And the last professional is a banker, which comes in different levels. Jackson, do you have any experience so far on the banker side?
Well, so right now I'm an associate. I haven't had to take out like practice loans or anything like that, but I've interacted with a few. There are various organizations that, honestly, some of them offer multiple of these services. If you're going through a bank, they'll offer you some of these accounting services and obviously loans and things like that. But I don't have extensive experience with them. From the standpoint of setting up your business, though, I mean, you're going to have business accounts. So at the very least, choosing a bank that you are confident in, because, banks have different rules. They have different abilities in terms of like their resources. And, if you read the news, historically, there have been some banks who have been caught up in, malpractice things. So you can never be, again, 100% sure about these things, but doing the research and trying to make sure that you're comfortable with whoever you decide to go with, whoever's going to be holding your money for you. That's the way that I started thinking about it, is not just, where do I want a bank account? It's who's going to be holding my money, and am I getting anything in exchange for allowing them to hold my money? Because the money that's in my bank account, it's a number, but it's a imaginary number. The dollars that I put in have already left that bank and been reinvested, however many times over. And, there's federal asset protection for these banks. The FDI, is it FDI?
FDIC.
Yeah, FDIC. But that's only up to a certain amount I think it's like $250,000 or something like that. Doesn't mean by any means that I think you're going to lose your money by going to one bank versus another. But, these are things to think about, because there have been issues with large banks historically.
Yeah. And usually brokerage accounts are up to $1 million. So they have a higher level of insurance. So again, you shouldn't be sitting on a massive amount of cash, because cash is a drag. But you can diversify by investing that, and then you have higher thresholds. When I think about banker in this context, I kind of think early on, this is what I believe in. I believe in having a relationship with your banker, and you can start by just getting, your basics, checking, savings. But then you kind of want to find early on, you probably want to start working with a bank that understands dental practice lending, in case that comes up. So when you're first looking for where should I bank, I like having at least a local presence. So smaller regional banks.
State credit union.
Yeah, well, yes, but state credit unions usually don't do dental. So you have to look for a little bit more regional. Maybe they're national, but they still have like a dedicated relationship manager kind of situation. Because there's a lot of things that come up that you don't think about. Just setting up your first bank account, savings, then it's car loans, then it's mortgage. And it's nice to have at least a default. You might be able to go online and get something cheaper, but you want to usually, so talk to your trusted banker. Feel free to go out and get a second opinion. because lower interest rates are lower interest rate. Some banks can't compete on everything, but you want to have somebody that's your default go-to for all those things. When you buy a car, you might get cheaper through the dealership, right? But you want to have those things to compare and have somebody you trust be like, hey, this is the other, rate I'm getting or the terms I'm getting, can you beat it? Mm-hmm. And they're like, nah, I can't do it. That looks pretty good. Go for it. I've had that happen a lot with the bankers that I work with a lot. So it's very important to have that person, even if you're not buying a practice.
Sure.
Just build that relationship earlier. And if you do buy a practice, you already have that relationship. Hopefully you have cash in your bank to look lendable, right? Like you have to have some liquidity to be able for the bank to be willing to lend. But if they already have that relationship, sometimes there's flexibility there. So again, in summary, your team is, your registered investment advisor. You have your legal professional. You have your tax accounting professional, and then the banker. And that is, there's some bits and pieces you can pull in there, depending on your insurance. That insurance. I've been crashing on insurance. Yeah, don't worry about it. These guys are getting the brunt of it. But that's your team. So, like, it's very important to have that team early on and build it. And you don't have to get that whole team from the start, but at some point you should have that team built out. Yeah.
Right.
And start with the person you feel most comfortable with, and again, certain people, maybe your tax and accounting professional is more advisory. That could be a really good person to start with and then plug in from there. But you just find that right person who, at least you need to have one person on that team that is advisory. And it is biased, but usually that's the registered investment advisor who can be the quarterback for all those other pieces.
Sure.
And the verification for all those other pieces. I don't need to be the expert in everything. I just need to know whether that is the right fit for the client according to their plan, which is easier. So I don't have to understand the specifics, but that gets you to a level where the client can be comfortable.
Sure.
So as we wrap up, I hope you enjoyed this topic. Like and follow us wherever you're listening or watching, and feel free to reach out with any topics that you would like to hear about in the future. And we look forward to hearing from you.
See you guys next time.
See ya.